Welcome to Media Morsels, the podcast about creativity and the media that feeds it. I'm Jessica, character and aesthetic enthusiast.
I'm Jamie, plot guy and the summarizer.
And I'm Mitchie, vibe checker and scene chewer.
And this week, to start out our medieval march, we watched A Knight's Tale, made in 2001, roughly 3 weeks post-Shrek.
PS, which is a new dating system that we are going to start using.
Or is it PS or AS?
I think I like BS and PS.
Yeah, I think
before
that's good.
Shrek and post
after
Shrek.
Yeah, well, yeah, post Shrek.
But ass.
BS
Bullshit and ass.
We're workshopping it.
Yes, but this is just
man, a boatload of fun.
Yeah, this movie is odd. I will say that, but it's also one of my favorite movies now as an adult. It wasn't always that way, but I went in with certain expectations as a kid. But once I learned what this movie really is, I fucking love it.
Yes.
But it's not exactly as it seems.
Mm-hmm.
So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into the appetizer round.
Do let's.
I remember seeing this movie. I don't know if I saw it in theaters. I'm kind of fuzzy about whether I saw it in theaters, but I know I definitely watched it when it came out on DVD rental or VHS rental or whatever. And I was fucking stoked because I love everything medieval. And it's A Knight's Tale is a movie about jousting, which how much more medieval could you get? But being a small autistic child who really liked the Middle Ages, what I expected and what I got were two very different things.
Yes.
If you don't know already, A Knight's Tale is famously anachronistic.
Intentionally.
Intentionally.
Very intentionally.
At the time, I guess I didn't understand that because I was a kid. It also doesn't help that my entire family is a whole bunch of actually
yes
people. So even though everybody in my family actually really loved this movie despite its anachronisms, it's at least for me it was a very love-hate relationship because it's so
but that's not how it was.
It's so not accurate.
Yeah.
But you can't, even knowing all that, I couldn't deny the magnetism of emotional through lines, the way that how the story came together and how it resolves. It was so satisfying.
And just a hell of a lot of fun.
Yeah, but it was a very, very love-hate relationship for me from the moment I first saw it. And there's still parts of it that I really I'm I know why they chose to do this, but I really can't fucking stand it. But that we will get into when we get into the main course. So that is me. I've been watching this movie pretty much ever since it came out.
Yeah, my first memory of this movie, I don't honestly really remember. I remember we could have seen it in college, but I wasn't really watching it or paying much attention to it. It was just something on. But now, later, now that I've had time to really consume it, so to speak.
Now that you've sort of been tuned in while it's been on, instead of just kind of
passively in the background.
Yeah.
Let's just say that it has influenced me.
I can't exactly pinpoint the first time I saw it. I feel like my earliest clear memory of it is, me and my roommates in college, Mitch among them, used to have a ritual of going to Walmart in the early wee hours of the night and pilfering through the bargain DVD bins to see what treasures we could find.
Honestly, that is a great tradition.
And I'm pretty sure this was one of those movies.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
2009-2010-ish was probably when I fished it up, and I loved it. It was great.
Yeah.
And, I loved it from the jump, but when I came to more fully understand this movie for what it actually is, And what it actually is not a medieval film at all. It's a sports movie.
And so now we get into the summarizing.
Okay, so the setup for this one is really quick, and honestly, you could just read the opening text crawl, because it explains, jousting is a sport of the nobility in medieval England and Europe, and commoners aren't allowed to play, but they love watching. But then we meet our aged knight and his squire and support staff, let's say.
Squires.
The knight has died. He's up to do his last round to win the tournament and a bunch of money.
And so one of his young, plucky, upstart squires...
Yeah, William Thatcher, decides to don his armor and pretend to be him. And wins the tournament and a whole bunch of money. And so the squires are like, hey, wait a minute. Mostly William.
Yeah, I was going to say, not the squires, William.
Yeah, William's the instigator. He eventually loops the rest of them in, but he's like, hey, we can make a lot of money doing this. Maybe we should keep pretending that I'm a knight. And the rest of the movie follows a pretty standard sports movie, underdog makes good arc. Except in the Middle Ages.
Underdog takes it to the world championship.
Under the reign of King Edward, I want to say.
Something like that. Yeah.
It's like, if you'd seen Varsity Blues, you've basically seen this movie.
Just take it to the Renaissance Fair.
Yeah, drag it through the horse shit, so on and so forth.
Well, and because I'm kind of a geek about some of this stuff, I do want to take a moment to talk about jousting before we get into the main course.
Yes.
Jousting is kind of a unique sport in that, perhaps for one shining moment in history, there was a sport where the poor could watch the born to riches silver spoon elite beat the fucking shit out of each other and sometimes kill each other in an incredibly skillful but violent competition. And that hasn't really happened in the same way since. Because most sports that we have, it's like, the rich have their sports, like
golf.
But they aren't usually violent sports. Violent sports are usually played by the working class people.
That can ascend to riches if they are very good and very lucky.
Like football players for the NFL, they're quite wealthy, but they didn't start that way, typically. Yeah. So they are often firmly working class.
Yeah, this is like if you took a bunch of trust fund babies, gave them spiked baseball bats, and just told them to have at it.
Yeah, and then
in a Walmart parking lot.
And the poor people got to watch and be like, yeah!
I'm here for it.
Honestly, yes.
Yeah.
But maybe instead of eat the rich, have the rich battle for our amusement.
But I think that's pretty fascinating. And it was also during a time period when the elite of society, the nobility and the royals, could in fact be poorer than
the merchant class. And the craft class.
Yeah. Jousting was a really interesting, intense sport that kind of flipped the class
dynamic.
Yeah, the class dynamics. Anyway, so let's go ahead and ride on into the main course.
The main feast. Let's get those smoked turkey legs.
Yes. All right, so A Knight's Tale begins, as Jamie was saying, with Sir Ector, the elderly, aged, over-the-hill, previous champion knight.
And he starts the movie dead.
And his three squires kind of
panicking.
Yeah. Well, they're panicking because they haven't eaten in 3 days, and now he's dead, and he is one lance away from
taking the
victory.
Prize. Yeah.
And they can finally fucking eat. And William is very quick to say, take off his armor, I'll ride in his place. And the other two squires, Roland and Watt, are both just like...
Wait, that's illegal.
What? What are you doing? Because it was illegal. It was illegal to impersonate a noble.
Watt played by Alan Tudyk.
Yes.
Roland played by...
Another prominent character actor of the time we can put that in the show notes, maybe. I don't know.
And William, played by
Heath
Ledger.
Ledger. During peak Ledger days.
co-starring Heath Ledger's signature smirk.
This is peak heartthrob Ledger, I would say.
Yes. Basically, William is like, I've got to do this so we can eat. But
And
really,
totally not because I really, really want to.
yeah, at his heart, it's because he's wanted to be a knight his whole life. And so, you know, he jousts in Sir Ector's stead. You know, he wins. He manages to stay on the horse because he's never really, like, struck anybody off a horse before, but he has trained with Sir Ector, so he knows how to, like, withstand a blow.
This blow specifically striking him directly in the helmet and bending it.
Yeah, so he can't take it off when they're, like, presenting him with the tournament trophy.
And that's the only reason the rest of the plot can happen, because his identity is not revealed.
Yes.
Oh man, we completely forgot about talking about the opening sequence.
Oh, shit. Okay, yeah. So this is a really important tone setter. So they have the opening title crawl, the opening text crawl explaining this is what jousting's about, and here's our scene. And then we are introduced to the stadium where a bunch of medieval times extras are rocking out to Queen's We Will Rock You. Because this movie is all about the artful anachronism.
Yes. That's when you get your first taste of, like, maybe this movie is different.
Yeah, and like we'll get into it more later, but really the crux of it is like all these anachronisms are on purpose to make you get the feeling of what it was like, not the truth of what it was like.
People, when they look at things that are happening in the past, like the past is a foreign country, and
well,
so
it seems like dusty and boring.
Well, and just when everything looks so unfamiliar, it's hard for your brain to kind of like make the connections it should be making. And we tend to also like romanticize or valorize various things in the past. So when we see jousting, we're like, look at that. What a noble sport.
And it was blood and guts and dirt.
Yes, and screaming and beer and, you know,
and cat meat being sold in the stands.
Yeah, and screaming fans, and so this movie, what it tries to do with all these sort of anachronistic details, from the music to the dancing and the costumes,
outfits,
is it's trying to make a bridge between like the past and the present and help you connect with the emotions through avant-garde fashion and
rock music. And that's what makes this a sports movie, not a historic fiction.
Yeah, it's not trying to be terribly historically accurate at all. No. I mean, fucking Chaucer is, like, we're about to get to that, but like Chaucer gets involved with these guys. Jeffrey Chaucer. So
which, the
obviously
timelines do not line up there at all.
But yeah, so he manages to stay on the horse, they win the tournament, they sell the trophy and get some money, and at first it looks like they're all going to kind of go their separate ways to do what they will with their life. Because they're like, okay, cool, we've got money to eat, we've got money to travel,
and our boss is dead.
Our boss is dead, what more is there to do? We just need to leave. But William is like, we could do this.
Yeah, if we did this once,
we can do it again. I can be a knight, and I can win tournaments, and we can make a lot of money. Why settle for a few pieces of silver when we could get so much more? Mm-hmm. And honestly, neither Roland nor Watt are really having it. They're both pretty practical. Watt is like, he's just
stomach on legs.
Yeah, he's a stomach on legs, and Roland is just, he's the pragmatic, wholesome guy. He's just like, William,
there's no way of proving that you're actually royalty or whatever have you. You can't really compete. Like, they check for this kind of stuff.
Yeah, he basically was like, I want to go home. Mm. You know,
he's the earthy one.
Yeah, he's like, riches and glory will get you dead, he says, pointing to the crow's
gibbeted
cage.
Corpses right behind them.
So this whole discussion is taking place with, like, a gallows right behind them in frame, full in frame. It's like, hey, by the way, if you lie to people, you will get
if you lie
hanged.
to rich people. He's like, that's where fame and glory will take you. I just want to go home. But William has a very strong heart, and he's a very charismatic leader, and so he ultimately does convince them to go along with this. And so they get their little sports training montage. Every sports movie has to have one.
Lots of slapstick.
Yes, lots of slapstick. It's so funny because I'm pretty sure that, like, Alan Tudyk is actually really, like, built.
Here it comes. The Alan Tudyk spiral.
Okay. So, a few months ago, I watched Resident Alien for the first time, and Alan Tudyk is, like, the main character in that. And while I have some criticisms about the show, and particularly, like, well, let's just say that
She has capital T thoughts.
I have capital T thoughts about it, but I really liked the pilot episode. And in the pilot episode, there's this moment where Alan Tudyk's character, like, spoiler alert, busts through a wall and, like, pulls this guy through a wall and is, like, throttling him because he's an abusive asshole. and something about, I just love it when men pull abusive men through walls and then throttle them within an inch of their life. There's just something sexy and powerful about that.
Something that happens all the time, obviously.
Well, and he's an alien in Resident Alien, he's an alien, and that's also, like, one of the things I really like.
Because you're a low-key xenophile.
Yeah. And it was so bizarre for me because I was like, number one, Alan Tudyk's, like, 50 years old or something. This, like, he's definitely, like, older than what I would
normally go for.
And I've never looked at Alan Tudyk in any kind of, like, sexy way before, but something in my goblin brain, like, latched on to that and wouldn't let go. And I was like, God damn it. I know if I try to resist the hyperfixation, it will eat me alive. I can only go with it. So thus began this tear through, like, most of the media he's ever been in. And I'm not attracted to all of his characters. It's, like, very specific characters that kind of, like, do it for me. And Watt is not one of those. I mean, I think he's a fine enough character, but definitely not, like, my type of person.
This just happened to be one of the movies you consumed on your tear through his...
But it's funny because, like, you're supposed to, I think, kind of see Watt as being sort of the gangly, stomach on legs, comic relief guy. A little bit, like, scraggly. Because they dress him in these, like, really big baggy clothes. But I was like, honestly, like, I don't know, but I low-key think that they dressed him in baggy clothes to disguise the fact that he is fucking built. Like, Alan Tudyk is fucking built. They do that in Tucker and Dale versus Evil, too. They dress him in, like, very baggy clothes to conceal that he's actually kind of fucking shredded. And, eventually we'll get around to this, but, like, you can really see, like, peak Alan Tudyk body in Dollhouse.
Oh yeah, I thought you were going to talk about the titty.
And I just I'm getting to the titty. But
this is the spiral leading up.
Yes.
To the titty.
But I keep, like, when I saw Dollhouse, I was just like, like, I was like, oh my god, what? I'm having trouble connecting, like, Alan Tudyk to this body, but here it is, and, like, I'm here for it. Anyway, so there's a couple of moments in the sports training montage where you can just see a little peek of that good pictorial, like, definition, that man titty that Alan Tudyk has. So, it's a little treat for you guys and gals out there.
As the neurotypical husband here, I can report that this is a trend that has happened a couple of times. It comes and goes as the tide.
Yeah.
It was Alan Tudyk this time. Previously, it was Oscar Isaac.
Yeah.
Who else? Gosh.
Oh my god, there's so many, babe.
It happens with regularity, and I saw it coming with Resident Alien, and I was like,
yes.
Here we go.
Batten down the hatches.
Yes. I'm shocked it didn't happen with James Marsters.
Yeah, I'm kind of shocked too, but I think just, like, Spike in Buffy the Vampire Slayer is just so I mean, I think I did watch a couple other things that he was in, but just Spike is he's there. He's perfect in and of himself. We can't, I honestly don't want to stray any further outside of that because he's just so perfect.
You should definitely listen to some of the audiobooks for
the Dresden Files.
Dresden Files, because he voices Dresden.
Yes.
And oh my god.
The man's got a velvet voice.
He's got a velvet voice, and there's one book in there that doesn't use his voice, and it's very striking. It's jarring.
Well, actually, I think I did go on a tiny little James Marsters mini tear, but it was short-lived because I just kept coming back to Spike. I was like, you can't top it.
A mini tear. A rip.
Yeah. But yeah, so I went on an Alan Tudyk tear, and believe you me, we'll be getting into some other Alan Tudyk movies.
It's unavoidable.
See, and this is a movie that stars Heath Ledger.
Yeah, Alan Tudyk is a secondary role.
Yeah. Well,
tertiary, even.
And we've talked about this too. I feel like every friend group, can see itself maybe in A Knight's Tale, right? Yeah. In like the core group of people.
Yeah, and there's like a core 5 that develops.
Yeah, and it's well balanced,
like a good D&D.
It's honestly the most wholesome. Like, honestly, I'm like, this is what boys being boys should be. Mm-hmm. Is this kind of tomfoolery?
Yes.
Like threatening, violence. It's fine.
Well, threatening violence to each other in a
way that will never actually pay off.
Yeah. Or little skirmishes, but mostly they're just like yes-anding each other, and like I don't know, just they're so cute as a group. Mm-hmm. And then there's Kate too, who's like we'll get to that, and we'll get to who we think we are later. But first,
we must introduce a new character.
Yes, as they have finished their sort of training, their improvised training in the woods, and they are heading down the road to run, or ruin, or however
the road to ruin.
Yeah, whatever, like however you say it. And they run across this man who is just
trudging naked.
Yeah, stark naked down the road. And they're like, oi, sir, what happened to your clothes? Uh-huh. And they strike up this conversation, and he introduces himself as Chaucer.
Jeffrey Chaucer.
Played by
Paul Bettany.
Mm-hmm. And I think the first hint that he gets that something is maybe not quite right here, it's that he's like, I'm Jeffrey Chaucer. And their faces are just blank, and he's like, the writer? And they're like, writer? And he's like, yeah, a writer, someone who writes, who writes words. And he kind of lists off some things, and among the things he's like, letters, poetry, patents of nobility, blah, 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 whatever. He notices that they're particularly interested in the patents of nobility. And he's like, oh, well, who are you? They start introducing themselves, and William's like, oh, I am Sir Ulrich von Liechtenstein.
Of Gelderland.
Of Gelderland. This is Foulhurst and blah, blah, blah. Like, he introduces his squires.
A bunch of asshole names.
Yeah, and Chaucer, like, then he's like, I see what's happening here. And he makes fun of them, and they're like, you better fucking shut your mouth, man. Because, it is kind of...
They're running a scam.
They are. They're running a scam, and they really could be tortured and killed for impersonating nobles. So they're like, you better fucking watch your tongue. And he's like, I get it. And he's like, you know what? You do need a patents of nobility to compete in the next tournament. To prove your
lineage and compete.
Like, that is required. So he's like, if you clothe me and feed me, and you let me ride your horse a little bit, I will do this for you.
Yeah, I will forge documents for you.
And so...
Funnily enough, Paul Bettany was also naked in Age of Ultron, too.
I mean, for parts of it, yes. Yeah. He ends up naked a lot.
he's in a lot of action movies, and
he does not come across as an action lead. It's bizarre.
Yeah, this seems very like this role.
Chaucer weird character acting seems more his lane.
Yeah, and like whenever I think of Paul Bettany, this is really actually what I like
go to.
Yeah, like what I'm drawn to first is like this role. This is just Paul Bettany to me.
This bard wizard.
Yes.
Blizzard.
So he makes their patents of nobility. They take it to run. It passes muster, and William is entered into jousting and the sword. And while he's sort of waiting for his first event to start, he's riding through the city, and he spies this woman who is in almost completely anachronistic clothing, although it is the closest it will ever come to being period accurate.
I did this in The Ghost and Mrs. Muir, and I'll do it now. As someone who has looked into historic clothing, this outfit that Jocelyn, we learn her name much, much later, wears, has at least its toes in the Middle Ages.
Yeah.
She has something that could be abstractly referred to as a hennin on her head.
Or just some kind of hair covering,
Her robe, if you squint, could be a medieval style from somewhere.
Yeah.
It looks like it might be done out of wool.
Yeah.
So, some points there. We don't get super gonzo until later.
Yeah.
But even this is starting to stretch credibility.
Yeah.
But very much on purpose, again.
Yes.
None of these are not accidents.
She is meant to be the sort of Eleanor of Aquitaine of her time. She's from a wealthy family. She is meant to be the trendsetter. She's supposed to be avant-garde.
A fashionista of her time.
Yes. And relatively outspoken, too. So he pursues her, basically, and, flirts with her, and she flirts a little bit back with him, and then he, rides after her into a church without realizing it, and the priest is like, "You desecrate the house of God!" And, honestly, what a great line.
Yes.
Followed later by when William is sort of, shooed away, the girls, Jocelyn and her handmaiden are, tittering, and the priest turns around, and he's like, "Does this not shock you, ladies?" And then, she's like, "Oh, I'm laugh so I don't cry, why? It's because of my beauty. Why, God, did you, curse me with this face?" And he's like, "God's will has a purpose, though we may not know it." And he, stretches out his hand, and he's got this big, rock on it. And she, instead of kissing it, she's, looking at it, and she's like, "Oh, that's lovely." And he's just, snatches it back and, doesn't know what to do. And then, walks away singing. And I'm like, I actually do use the, "Oh, that is lovely."
The irreverence.
Yeah, well, and very slyly, I think, pointing
Critiquing.
out, the opulence of his attire. But William is smitten immediately. He doesn't know her name yet, but he is totally in love with her, and he does a lot in this in this first tournament. He does really well in the joust at first, but his armor gets damaged, so he's gonna have to take it to the blacksmith, but we don't get there yet. First, he has to go compete in the sword arena, and on his way there, he is intercepted by some creepy religious dudes, and they basically are like, "We've got your herald." And it turns out that Chaucer, as soon as they got to run, started gambling and has gambled up a debt of 10 gold florins. And if William doesn't pay that debt, they're going to literally flay him. He's been naked twice in this movie. That's why he was naked the first time, is because he got in trouble with gambling. But William agrees graciously to pay that debt so that Chaucer isn't flayed or skinned or whatever. So
they'll take their pound of flesh, basically.
Yeah, literally, that's where the pound of flesh thing comes from.
Merchant of Venice, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah. So he goes to the sword arena, and he really does, fucking slay. Actually, he's the best at sword, but that's not prestigious enough for him, and it doesn't win as much money. So anyway, he's trying to get his armor after winning in the sword arena. He's trying to get his armor fixed, but he doesn't have any money. So all the other blacksmiths are turning him down, and then they sort of were like, well, if you don't have any money, you can like try the farrier, and it's a woman. And he goes over there and he's like, can you please fix this? And she's like, no. And then he sort of cleverly plays on the whole, like...
Oh, is it because I'm a woman that the other blacksmiths think I'm not good?
Yeah, and he's like, oh, no, it's not. Like, the fact that you're a woman was never mentioned. They just said that you were, like, shite at armor. And she's like, oh, give me that. And so she repairs it. And then after that, like, the next day, he is getting ready for the joust. And he seeks Jocelyn out in the stands, and he's talking to her. But Jocelyn has a guest, I guess. It's Count Adhemar, played by Rufus Sewell, I think is how you pronounce his name. And he...
AKA the jockstrap.
Yeah, he's our anime villain on the scene.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. This whole thing is kind of...
It's basically a big shonen
basically
anime.
shonen.
Yeah.
Yes. We were all talking about how well that would, like, how you could easily turn this into a shonen anime.
Like, he's kind of the Vegeta, except, second season, maybe he'd become a friend. Maybe.
Well, I don't think they'd ever be friends, but, like, perhaps...
Tense allies.
Enemies to lovers?
I mean...
There's fics about it, apparently.
Well, no, I don't think there's actually no real fix that I found on AO3, which I was very surprised by, of, like, William Adhemar / fic.
I mean, this movie was pre-Tumblr.
That's not, yeah, and that's not really my thing, but I could see how people could get there.
But, like, with lines such as "Master of 1,000 lances," next time you see me is going to
be on the flat of your back.
Yeah,
like, I mean,
please, you've been weighed, you've been measured, and you've been found wanting.
I mean, this shit totally writes
itself.
Yeah,
it's like, God, I'm like, Tumblr has, like, kind of broadened my brain because before, every other time I've watched this in my life before, I just was, like, looking at this from, like, yep, they're, like, rivals. But then as soon as Adhemar compares William to an anvil and William compares Adhemar to a hammer, I was like, oh,
they banging.
This gay. this could be really gay. But I mean, it's not canonically, and I don't think it was meant to be that way. But the Tumblr, like the internet, has just like
opened your third eye.
Yeah, my gay.
So we established their rivalry both on and off the field of battle.
Yeah. So but Count Adhemar is interested in Jocelyn.
Yes. That's the off the field of battle rivalry.
Yes. And he sees that Jocelyn, like, as William and Jocelyn are kind of flirting a little bit from the stands, he sees that there is something there, and he begins mocking William. And this is where the rivalry really begins, because he's, being a super dick to him.
Oh, yeah.
And humiliating him in front of everybody. So during the course of the tournament, William faces this
mystery opponent.
This mystery knight. He's called Sir Thomas Colville, and I think during the course of their jousting match, he injures Sir Thomas Colville, or perhaps he was injured beforehand,
he was injured before.
And he just couldn't compete anymore. And he asks for a draw, and he'll withdraw, but it helps him retain his honor, and William grants him that. And Adhemar can't really understand that as he's watching from the stands, because he's like,
why show mercy? It's weakness.
Yeah, and I was like, dude, you don't know how to talk around women, do you? Because, like...
Jocelyn thinks it's so romantic and chivalrous.
Well, Jocelyn thinks William's actions were romantic and chivalrous. I don't know, it's kind of a red flag for me when a man says mercy is weakness. I'm like, that's all mercy is. I'm like, oh, fuck.
Mars an incel.
I mean,
do we really need to go into another recording session about incels?
Well, I don't think he's an incel. He can get as many women as he wants. He sees them as objects, though. Yes. And so he doesn't care that she doesn't think that mercy is
good.
Yeah. He doesn't care. He doesn't even enter his mind to really consider it. So then they have their first match, William and Adhemar, and William really gives him a fucking run for his money. It is a close one.
It's a knockdown drag.
Adhemar already has basically noted that William is essentially fearless because
he's graceless, but he is fearless.
Yeah, graceless but fearless. He has no style, and that's unbeknownst to him. It's because like William had to teach himself. Nobody taught him that when you are jousting at the last second you should lift your head so that any blow from a lance can glance off your head and prevent splinters from like literally like skewering you in the eye. Nobody taught him that, so he is always keeping his eye
on the target,
on the prize, and he's just he's relentless. He can take a hit. So Adhemar almost, I don't know if he almost loses, but it's very close. But in the last sort of round, he strikes William and he wins. And then he's like, come back when you're worthy.
Mm-hmm.
And
anime.
Yeah. Baka. So this ignites a fury inside William. He's like, I have got to beat him because William has to be the best. Mm. And he's, this is like twice now that Adhemar has totally humiliated him.
Yes.
And he is really focused on the next tournament, but
there was a fun moment whenever he gets hit, because he so as a little bit of a clever kind of thing where it flashes back to his
he gets so hard he has a flashback.
Yeah. Hit so hard I threw you back to when you were 7.
Uh-huh.
And actually, so there's several like sort of clever and well done flashbacks. And in this one, you see that William, as a child, really admired knights. He wanted to be one. And his father really didn't have the heart to tell him that he couldn't be. His father, in fact, who he seems like he's a single father, is like, no, you can absolutely change your stars.
You can do anything you set your mind to, basically.
Yeah. And no matter how, like, ludicrous that was, considering, like, the time period we're talking about, he was like, you can change your fate. And...
Change your fate.
Change your fate.
You can change your fate.
Mero Biba.
Stop it!
Mero Biba.
So, yeah, he's really focused on that. But then Jocelyn's handmaid shows up, and she's like... Because Chaucer's like, you have to stay, you have to go to banquet, you have to dance. And William is like, no, we need to get on the road and go to the next tournament. And then, Jocelyn's handmaid shows up, and she's like, my lady would like to know what color tunic you're wearing so that she may dress to match. And like...
Roland is just staring straight ahead at their tent that they're staying at. And he's just like, green.
Yeah.
With wooden toggles things.
Yeah. He basically is looking at, like, the tent fabric and is like, I can make a tunic out of that.
I mean, it's basically Scarlett O'Hara and the curtain dress from Gone with the Wind.
Yes, but for a man.
Yeah.
And William is just like, oh my god, this is a disaster because I don't know how to dance. And meanwhile, so the blacksmith who repaired their armor, they pay her with part of William's trophy. He doesn't win the joust, but he does win the sword competition. And so they pay her, but she really wants to go as far as Paris. So she asks them to take her with them, and they say no. But then she finds them later down in the stables as Roland is trying to make William a tunic to go to the banquet in, and Chaucer is trying to teach William how to dance with Wat. But Chaucer and Wat can't stop antagonizing each other.
So it's not going
well. But Kate, the blacksmith, kind of stumbles across this, and she's like, I could teach you better, but I won't unless you take me as far as Paris. And so they relent, and she does teach them. She teaches William how to dance, and William goes to the banquet, and he meets Jocelyn, who is in a fucking horrendous horrendous costume. She looks like
a tie-dyed
she looks like
chicken.
Rufio.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
Rufio!
So the thing is, Rufio's look fucking slaps in Neverland,
Well, 'cause
not
it's-
necessarily
yeah.
here.
Because, like, in Hook, at least, they went, like, full, like, 80s punk rock look with him.
Well, that,
Yeah.
and not to mention it's supposed to be like a fantasy ballad. At
Yeah,
that
it's like
point,
fantasy
because
nonsense.
It's a whole bunch of kids dressing up to,
But like,
yeah.
but Jocelyn has like the Rufio hair in the middle of like a medieval banquet, and it just, I'm like, wah! It
It's
just makes me want to like claw my
It's
face off.
troubling,
But
yeah.
I understand why they did it, but that doesn't.
Avant-garde.
Yeah, it's avant-garde, but
certainly
it's yeah, they probably would like stoned her or something for
Witch!
yeah, or just like, you know, there's another like dress
Only
later.
a witch uses
There's-
Aquanet.
There's another dress later where she has like, you know, like this boob panel thing.
I mean, honestly, the tit panel slapped.
I mean, it slapped, but it was not appropriate.
Well, we say that, but there was a medieval noblewoman who had her dresses tailored to expose her favorite boob.
I don't think she was medieval. I think she was more early modern.
Fair enough.
Yes.
But there are historical examples of artful titty.
Of women who display tit,
Yes.
who serve tit. We're getting really far off task, though.
But titty.
So,
Alan Tudyk.
Shut up.
so once again, Adhemar is there at the banquet, and he tries to humiliate William by being like, show us a dance of Gelderland, and like William is floundering because he just learned how to dance like
The one dance.
yeah, and now he's being asked to like invent another dance on the spot, and he's saved by Jocelyn, who can improvise a lot better than him, and then basically
They dance to David Bowie, and it's great.
the dance is a hit, and everybody's dancing to Golden Years, and it devolves from like the highly structured medieval dances into like, you know, sort of the like,
Studio 54 disco dancing
yes.
fever.
which again, like, there's a purpose to this. It's meant to
Evoke a feeling.
Yeah.
evoke a feeling of like, yeah, this is a wild party and it was a huge success, you know.
Well, you were talking about it being like, you know, the sports film or whatever. It's like high school sports, and this is the prom.
Yeah.
yeah. And the wimpy kid is actually
He's
the-
kind of cool and popular.
yeah, he's becoming popular, and the most popular girl in school has
Adopted him.
yeah.
And the
So-
bully is just like,
and the bully's like, "Mwah, mwah." So that goes off splendidly. Then they go on to the next tournament, and
Adhemar has been called away.
yeah, Adhemar has been called away. He has been called to war, and
Because that's his actual job.
William has no more real competition, and that chafes for him because he's like, every win is meaningless if I don't win against him.
Mm-hmm.
And he also, like, in his one
In his
really
petulance.
uncool moment in the movie, actually it's not one uncool, he has a couple of really uncool moments because he's just kind of like a clueless dude, and he is very, like, I don't want to say self-centered, but he can be
Single-minded.
he can be, yeah, single-minded.
He's a couple of degrees short of a himbo.
Yes.
Yeah, he is just, I don't know, I think, like, maybe the reason why he isn't a himbo is exactly these moments.
Yeah, the kindness is not fully there.
Yeah, so, like, normally he is very, like, when he is feeling good, he is very generous and very kind and very, like, flirty and clever. But when he figures out that Adhemar is not there at this next tournament, he is livid. And Jocelyn makes the mistake of trying to, like, you know, be cute and, like, talk to him when he's in a mood. Mm-hmm. And
He slights her.
he slights her, like, really bad. And she storms off. And so he continues with his tournaments, and he's, like, racking up wins. And, like, Adhemar is watching these wins come in, essentially, from, like, the field of battle. He's, like, seething about it that, like, Ulrich is winning every single one. But again, William is just like, it means nothing if Adhemar isn't here. And if Jocelyn isn't here too, because now I've, like, pissed her off. So he ends up going to Paris, and he writes her a letter to ask her to come to Paris and watch him.
And all of his buddies help him write this letter, and it's really cute.
It's really cute. Yeah. I'm like, again, this is what...
It's a good buddy movie.
Yeah, buddies should do. So he sends this letter. It wins her back. It wins her affections back. And she agrees to meet him in Paris. But when they do meet in Paris... Well, he does it again. You know, she meets him again in the cathedral, and she's like, speak poetry to me. And he's like, I can't. Like...
I'm not great at improv, sorry.
Yeah, but
you remind me of the flank of my horse or something like that.
Or he makes the mistake of saying, I will win this tournament for you, because she hears that all the time.
Yeah.
And what set him apart to begin with was that he didn't promise her that he'd win it for her. So now he's doing what all the other guys are doing, and she's like, okay,
gross.
What?
Yeah.
So she's like, I want poetry. He's not able to deliver. He's like, your breasts, they sit below your neck, or whatever he's saying, like the worst shit.
It completely.
And he's like, what do I have to do to prove myself to you? And like, I don't know, he says some really shitty things, to be honest. And so she finally just turns around and she's like, if you love me, if you really love me,
you'll throw the tournament.
Yeah, you will lose, because it will contradict your self-love. It will go against your, like, normal nature, and it will prove that you care about me more than you care about yourself and your own glory. And at first he refuses, but you know,
love.
he want to
love, man.
Yeah, but love, yeah. he
lust.
Yeah, lust, you know, something. So meanwhile, unbeknownst to William, his friends have made a bet for all that they, like, all the money they possess,
that he'll win
this tournament with the so he starts losing, and they're like, oh my god, what the fuck? No.
And there's like this cute little montage of the crew just sitting there and getting just
showered
with
like lance splinters, and they're just like, oh fuck. But then, having seen him get beat the fuck up enough, Jocelyn finally has mercy on him, and she says, if you know, she sends word that if he truly loves her, that instead of losing, he'll win the tournament.
He'll turn it around.
And William is like, okay, I can do that. Like, fine, fuck, I'll do that. So he does win. And after he has won, she comes into his tent, because he can't make it to the banquet because he's so, like, fucking bruised.
He's basically one giant bruise.
Yeah, but she slides into his tent, and, like, you know...
And then she slides, well...
down his tent.
She does, like, she basically is like, I am your prize. And then she mentions, my, you know, handmaid tells me that your varlets, that they call you William sometimes. And he doesn't lie to her. He says, like, yeah, they do.
So and at this point, you kind of know she knows.
Yeah, she doesn't ask questions, but at some level she has to know that something is going on here.
But she doesn't make a thing of it.
And they, you know, and they do it. They make love off screen. We don't get to see that. This is a kids appropriate movie, guys.
I guess.
So the violence is okay. The sex is not.
Welcome to the American movie scene.
So they move on to the World Tournament in London. And this is really emotional for William, because he remembers when his father
sent him off,
brought him on this very ferry, because they go there by ferry, to Sir Ector, and told him to watch and learn everything he could about becoming a knight. And
Sir Ector is actually kind of a cool dude.
He is.
He's
like,
kind of a bro.
Sir Ector does seem like he was a very kind man.
Yeah.
It's like, let me see your arm. Ooh.
Yeah, good with
you
kids.
got some spirit to it.
William actually grew up with two really good father figures.
Yeah. And he doesn't know, like, Sir Ector is dead, who is presumably was something of a father figure to him. And he also believes that his father is dead, But he's coming back to London. This is the first time he's been back to London for a really long time. And it's bringing up all those memories. And so he gets into the tournament.
Well, there's like the introductory parade through London. The boys are back in town.
The boys are back in town.
And like it's great because there's almost like cardboard cutouts of like all the knights heraldry and stuff like
there's
that.
merch in the crowd.
Yeah, everybody's like got, their faces are painted and shit like that.
Yeah.
And it's just like this big event and everybody's screaming and excited and they're chanting his name. Oh, god damn it. So I think also in Paris, or at some point during this tournament circuit, William, he goes up against Sir Thomas Colville again. But Chaucer and the other squires find out that isn't Sir Thomas Colville. There is no Sir Thomas Colville.
That's the Crown Prince.
That's the Crown Prince, Edward, the Black Prince of Wales. And basically everybody is backing out of jousting him because it is insane to bodily
endanger the life of a
royal. But even though as Chaucer races to withdraw William from this match, William starts to ride, and the prince picks up his lance and he starts to and he rides against William, and they trade blows and then turn around and meet in the middle, and Sir Colville is like, oh, you
rode
against me, or we meet again, and William's like, yes, we meet again, your highness, or whatever, and he takes off his helmet, and now everybody can see that this is the prince, and everybody's like, oh fuck, but he's like, so you knew and you rode anyway, and William's like, yeah, I don't have it in me to withdraw, and the prince is like, nor do I,
and now they're buddies,
and William in particular feels a certain kind of kinship with the prince in this really unlikely way, because as a peasant he's not supposed to joust, and as a prince
he's also not
supposed to joust. They're both hiding who they really are,
cut from the same cloth, so to speak.
Absolutely.
So anyway, he back to London. We're in London. He's doing really, really well in the tournament, and best of all, Adhemar is back, so he will finally get to face Adhemar
and take his revenge.
Yeah, Adhemar might have come back in Paris, but I think he withdrew something.
He withdrew because of the prince.
Yeah.
So they did not get to face each other.
Something happened. But anyway, this is the first time that he has the possibility of facing Adhemar again in London. But he can't resist, while he's here, kind of taking a little stroll through Cheapside, and he runs across
his home neighborhood.
Yeah, that's where he was born, in Cheapside. And so he runs across this little girl, and he just is kind of chatting with her, and he says, well, I wonder if you knew a man named John Thatcher. He used to live around here. And she's like, yeah, of course. He still lives around here. He's just he lives right around the corner. And he's blind. And William can't resist kind of going up and reconnecting with his father. And this scene is really emotional.
It will make you cry.
Yeah, it's so good. It's so good because there's this whole did he change his stars? And William's like, yes, he did. And he is me.
Yeah.
Did you follow your feet?
Yeah, did you follow your feet home? Because, little baby William was worried about, how will I be able to find my way home? And his father says, just follow your feet. And so, as, William is standing there, as a man, his father's like, and did he follow his feet home? And he's like, yes. And he's like, Father!
Yeah,
and
you will cry.
Yeah.
He's just like, Sir Ulrich, I hear them chanting that from the stadium.
Yeah, So they reconnect, and it's very, it's very emotional. It's very touching. But then, as William is hanging out with his father, I guess Adhemar had somebody, follow William. And so he sees him coming out of
The Thatcher residence.
And, like, going up on the roof to, like, thatch the roof to fix it because it's all leaky because his father can't because he's blind.
Good enough for a blind Thatcher.
And he basically narcs on him.
Yeah. Because of course he does.
And so, like, the next morning, William's like, this is the best day ever. My dad's alive.
All my friends are with me, including my girlfriend.
My girlfriend. Except, like, so, asterisk, Adhemar has entered into negotiations for Jocelyn's hand. But I think, like, William is just feeling pretty confident that maybe something,
everything's gonna be okay.
Everything's gonna be okay. But Chaucer and Jocelyn show up, and they're like, William, they know.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to arrest you, and they are going to humiliate you and take everything away from you, and it will be painful, and you should run. And Jocelyn is even like...
Liar reveal trope.
Except this one lasts, like, maybe 5 minutes.
And Jocelyn is like, I love you, William. I love who you are.
She's like, cards on the table, it doesn't matter to me.
But she's like, I will run away with you, and I will, like, I will live in poverty with you. And essentially, William is like, literally, girl, you do not know what poverty is.
You don't know anything about being in poverty. How can you say that?
Yeah.
Which, he's kind of right.
He's kind of right. I mean, but she's right, too, that, they will take everything away from him.
Yeah,
and
they'll have no kind of life together if he stays.
Yeah. And everyone around him is telling him, like, William, you need to run. But he's like, no, I'm a knight, and I don't run. So, like, he goes, and he gets arrested. And then there's this scene that's kind of similar to the, like, gladiator scene with, like, Maximus and Commodus, where, like, William is in, like, the stocks, and Adhemar comes to visit him, and he's, like, really fucking angry because he's like, oh my god, the person who was, like, almost bested me at every turn
was some peasant.
Was a fucking dirty peasant. And so he's, like, furious. And so he shows up, and he just, like, he kind of, like, he punches the shit out of him. And he's just like, in what world could you have beat me? And then he, like, leaves. And then William is taken out and put into, like, I guess, the real stocks, like the
public town square stocks.
Yeah. And people are, like, throwing vegetables and stuff at him.
The whole 9 yards.
And, his men, like, Watt and Chaucer and Roland and Kate,
with her hammer.
With her hammers, they all show up to defend him. And things are looking pretty fucking ugly. Like, it looks like there might be a mob. Because, like, other peasants, I guess, are like, how dare you try to aspire to be more than you are? Like, know your place.
Well, this moment reminds me so much of a Terry Pratchett quote I'm very fond of. The same people that cheer for your coronation will cheer for your beheading. Because the people just like a show.
Yeah. But in the midst of all this, there's, like, these mysterious cloaked figures, and they throw their cloaks off, and it's Prince Edward and his, like, and his, like, guards.
Yeah.
And he, like, steps up, and everybody's like, oh shit. And he's like, he says to William, basically, like, your men love you. If I knew nothing else about you, that would be enough. But you also tilt when you should yield. And that's knightly too. And he basically turns to the crowd and he's like, my royal scholars have discovered that this man is descended from an ancient,
ancient royal line.
An ancient, like, noble line or something like that. And because I said it,
it's true.
It goes. And everybody's like, oh, okay, oh shit. And so he's like, let him out of the stocks. And then he's like, kneel. And he knights
him in the street.
He knights William right then and there.
Amidst the pig shit and the rotten fruit.
Yeah, in front of the stocks. And he knights him, and he's like, rise, Sir William. And then he's like, you've got a tournament to go to. You and Adhemar will have your joust, your match.
Showdown.
Yeah. Yeah, you guys will have your match, so go get ready. never mind that fucking William has been in the stocks for, like, at least a night at this point, so his,
He has
like...
not slept, he has not eaten.
You know, his shoulders are probably fucking sore as shit.
He might have pissed himself.
Yeah, who knows what's... Anyway, but he goes and he gets ready, and Jocelyn isn't there in the stands waiting for him, but he's finally getting his showdown with Adhemar. But meanwhile, Adhemar, having learned that he is going to fucking face this dirty peasant, has gone to the blacksmith or something and gotten his lances tipped, and the sharp tip, hidden by, like, this sort of, like...
The blunted end that is usually there for the sporting version.
Yeah, and...
Is a breakaway.
So, of course, like, he's like, well, if I can't win normally, I'll cheat!
And I'll kill him!
And I'll fucking kill him! So, yeah, they start their match, and things aren't looking too good for our boy.
He gets stabbed in the shoulder.
Yeah, in the first blow, he gets, like, stabbed in the shoulder by the, like, tipped lance. And he's also just, like, totally not at his best right now.
Yeah, so... Before their final, like, kind of cross paths, Paul Bettany, like, who has been announcing Sir Ulrich of Liechtenstein, you know, protector of French virgins, so on so forth.
Yeah,
Chuck Norris jokes.
Doing all the incredible, impossible, most interesting man in the world things.
Yeah. He steps aside and he's like, by the way, I haven't done my intro.
Well,
because
see,
he's
that
trying
happens,
to buy them time.
Okay, that happens, like, after the second time that they go, because William, after being hurt, he drops his lance, like, halfway through the run, and he gets struck again, which really sucks, but he doesn't get knocked off his horse. So they take off his armor. He's like, I can't breathe with this armor on. It doesn't matter how light it is, which is kind of fun because, like, that armor is it's no longer an antique. It's, like, cutting edge because the blacksmith girl, she is
an ultra lightweight steel, basically, and marks it with the totally not Nike swoosh.
Yeah, but it's basically like this is
your upgraded sports equipment.
Your sports equipment, yeah. So it's a commentary on that. But anyway, so even that light.
He's got his Jordans on, and even then...
Yeah, and he has to have it taken off. And they're like, that's fucking madness, William. You are going to die.
Yeah, you're trying to joust without armor.
But, and he can't hold the lance, so he's like, lash it to me arm. And so Watt is, like, tying the lance to his arm, and...
It's a suicide mission at this point, basically.
Yeah, and while this is happening, two things happen. Jocelyn arrives, and she has brought his father. Yeah. And so his father can't see, you know, anything.
But he's there to hear the match. And he also has his introduction, where he, instead of his normal sort of fancy flourishes, he introduces William as, like, Sir William Thatcher. And, like...
He does this he announces this, like, in front of the view of the prince, like, maybe like, on the guardrail.
Kind of standing on his throne.
Basically, the prince is just like... Y'all can do whatever you want. I'm entertained.
Yeah, like, you cut up, dude. Do your thing.
You know, William has done me a solid, like...
Multiple
times. Yeah. He is on my good list. So, anyway, he buys them enough time. William has the lance lashed to his arm, and he rides. And with everything that he's got, he strikes Adhemar with the lance, because the only way he can win is by knocking him off the horse at this point, which he does. And there's this really cool, like, sequence where, like, you know, Adhemar, like, stops before he hits the ground and has this really weird sort of, like, vision of William and his posse being like, you have been weighed, you have been measured, and you've been found wanting. Welcome to the new world, you know.
Welcome to the new world, bitch.
Yeah. Like, God save you.
Welcome to Earth.
Yeah, like...
like, they look down on him, like, sort of like the poster to Holes, almost.
Yeah. And then he hits the ground, and it's like, damn.
William's big victory.
Yeah, William's big victory. And everybody...
He gets his big romantic kiss with this girl.
Yeah, the crowd goes wild. His dad, like, looks up at the sky with tears coming out of his eyes.
His blinded eyes.
And
it's a big damn happy ending.
yeah,
is
and
what it
Jocelyn, like, races over and, like, they have their, like, great kiss.
It is pretty good.
It's a good
It's a
kiss.
good kiss.
And it's a great, like, you know, the music is mwah, even though it's anachronistic.
Well, I mean, the music is...
AC/DC.
Gonna shake him all night long.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
It's like, waggle those eyebrows.
Oh,
I
yeah,
bet
she is.
is.
But do get him to a surgeon first.
Yeah, he
'cause-
still has half a lance in his shoulder.
Yeah, he does. So yeah, and they have this, and you just know that because like William is such good buddies with the prince,
The
and because
future king.
Adhemar is kind of on his shit list because like Adhemar apparently was doing like all kinds of crazy shit, war crimes,
As you do.
As he do.
as he do. You just know that like William is going to get all kinds of titles and land and like riches.
The ultimate turn of fortune.
He's probably going to be a celebrity.
I just really enjoyed the part of like the entire crowd calling for Sir William, and his dad is there.
Yeah.
And like, who is it? Like Jocelyn or somebody is just kind of, I don't know, they have a moment of they're chanting his name or whatever.
Well,
like
it's
that.
Chaucer. It's like, that's your name. That's your father's name that they're chanting.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the ultimate
It's
achievement
so
of both
good.
of their dreams.
Yes. And so, and also, you don't ever really get to see this, but it's possibly implied. You kind of hope that, like, Roland and Jocelyn's handmaid.
They're having a bee romance in the
Yeah,
background of the entire movie.
There's this very subtle, like, bee romance thing happening.
They're constantly chatting each other up.
Yeah.
There's technically like, I counted, 4 separate plot lines.
Yeah,
There's
and they
the
actually all, like...
Mesh.
Yeah.
So you have the main plot line with William. You have the B plot line, which is the prince. You have the C plot line, which is the
beta couple.
and then you have the fourth one, which is the blacksmith.
Well, I thought the fourth one was the announcers having their, like...
Oh yeah, the fourth one is the announcers, and then the fifth one is the blacksmith.
Because the announcers, basically the entire time, there's this trend of, like, they're trying to outdo each other, but nobody can quite match Chaucer.
Nobody can top Chaucer.
And they keep trying to, like, imitate him badly.
Yeah. Well, like, because Chaucer's basically all of William's team are, like, for the people.
Yeah.
They're, like, salt of the earth,
The
you
dude
know?
wears his... Their drip is kind of on point, too,
Yes.
honestly.
Well, you know, some of the wardrobe is not...
It's anachronistic, but it doesn't matter. It's style. It's substance.
Well, no, I was going to say, even... So I would say most of the men's wear was pretty good.
It's mostly just
Jocelyn's stuff.
Like, she
There's
has a handful
literally...
of outfits that are fun, and some are just like, what is this?
In one case, she's literally wearing, like, a 1940s Dior
Yeah, like, so I...
outfit.
Yeah.
I called this when I saw it. She was like wearing this white dress and like a weird like white sun visor hat thing, and I was like, that looks like 1940s Dior. And then I looked it up and I was like, holy
It's
shit,
literally
Like,
1940s Dior.
first page of Google image search, 1940s Dior outfit. That was this. Anyway, so yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Not medieval.
But all of these different layers braid together really well.
Yeah, they
And
all reinforce each other. It's great.
And so even when this movie bugged me because of all of its anachronisms, I couldn't help but love it because, you know, the payoff is so good. He does win. Like, there's this wonderful emotional meeting with his father, and he gets to be who he really is, and he wins by his merit. It's like the classic rags to riches, but by your own merit, by your own hard work.
Grit.
Yeah, and in the end, the truth wins, I guess.
The truth will out and things will be okay.
Yeah.
The fact that you're a badass, yeah, okay, you get to be knighted.
Yeah, basically.
Which is basically, and he made this point very early in the movie, like, that's how it used to be. He's like, you know, originally, knights were just really good warriors, and that's
Yeah.
how you became a lord. Was, you know, you essentially became a warlord.
Yeah.
So-
That doesn't bear further examining, though.
Yeah.
Dessert?
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So let's go ahead and I think head into the dessert round. All right. So, me.
You.
Things that I take away.
Yes.
Or things even that I aspire to as well.
Yeah.
Because, like, for me, one of the things I really love about A Knight's Tale is just the friendship dynamic.
Yeah.
The dynamics between all of these different characters. And for me, in the things that I write, what tends to happen, and I think this is because, again, I am on the spectrum, and I find juggling like larger groups and larger
Ensemble
social
casts.
interactions difficult. So usually my preferred way of hanging out with people is like one-on-one or in very small groups where I can like pay really close attention to people and like actually like I'm having to spend a lot of energy reading people. And if I know people really well, it's not as much energy, but like I still just really need to pay attention. So in most of my work, I've noticed this myself, I usually don't have a lot of characters in the same spot having like a conversation of like 3 or more characters, because I think that's just difficult for me to juggle all those dynamics, juggle the dialogue, keep track of everything. I don't know. This is sort of like an aspirational work for me of like, or something worth studying.
How to handle an ensemble cast well.
Like, how to write just like these really fun, interesting dynamics between characters. And that's something that I aspire to, being able to write ensemble casts. I think in other ways, or the way it has influenced my writing to date, is that I mean, this is a character-driven movie. It is a movie that has this like strong main plot, this strong character-driven main plot, but also deftly weaves these other things in underneath and has a really like bang, a really great payoff, emotional payoff. Like it is both like the emotional climax and the like action climax. They're
simultaneous.
Yes. So and that makes it they reinforce each other, and that's what makes it so explosively good. And honestly, like I think that this movie is underappreciated for being able to achieve that. I think that people think it's kind of a fun, like, you know, medieval sports movie, and look at all the funny anachronisms, and I think that's probably one reason why it might not have done as well, is because it did make some very strange, like, choices. But it also
do really well when it released. It was like number 2 in the box office, opposite a really tough competition.
I think the thing is it kind of got buried because it was like there was some stiff competition.
It also has a pretty decent Rotten Tomatoes score. I think it was like 6.7 to 7.
It came out like opposite like Moulin Rouge and The Mummy 2,
which you can also like still see. Like, it's interesting because with like Shrek, you can see that Shrek and A Knight's Tale came out at a very similar time,
and they both have that same like cheeky medieval thing going on.
Yeah, and then you have Moulin Rouge and A Knight's Tale kind of coming out at the same time, and those both take modern music and put it in a historical context. So you can kind of see like the trends building there. But anyway, I feel like A Knight's Tale, I don't think it's right to say that it's been forgotten, because I think plenty of people really, really like it. But
it perhaps does not get the attention it deserves.
Yeah, it doesn't get as much credit for some of the things it did that I think it deserves. So, yeah, I think for me it is both like, yes, yay, character, like I really like the character-driven main plot, the well-handled B-plots. That's something that I try to do. And in addition, this is one of those works that I look to when I think about how to achieve a good ensemble cast, how to write a good ensemble group.
Speaking of casts and stuff, would we want to talk about, comparing everybody to a certain character in this?
Yeah. So if we were characters in this movie, we've played this game several times. I think like everybody in the friend group, whenever we played this last, agreed that I would be William.
It's the main character energy.
It's the protagonist. Mm-hmm. But also it's because like
you're bullheaded.
Yeah, like I'm idealistic and I get an idea in my head and I just drive at it and I won't compromise, and sometimes in ways that like will seriously like shoot me in the foot. Mm-hmm. Or like cut my nose off to spite my face, for the principle of the thing.
A butt full of principles.
Yes. So I'm definitely like very William with like a dash of Watt, because like I am obsessed with food, just like Watt.
Well, I am definitely a Roland with a slight smackerel of Watt. Roland is the big, round, friend-shaped man.
He's just a solid guy.
He's the one that makes the tunic, even though I can't sew worth a damn.
But he's the dependable friend.
Yeah, and he also has a cute little subplot with, like, the handmaiden. And, like, you always see them kind of, like, buddied up next to each other.
He gets to be cute.
Her lady in waiting. I've been saying handmaiden, but it's really
and they're both
lady in waiting.
They're both kind of like wingmans almost.
Yeah,
they're different sides of the wingman spectrum.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, to be honest, you need two wings to fly.
Hey.
And I am Chaucer without the crippling gambling addiction, because I'm kind of the party face that rushes in with social graces when things get desperate.
Well, and you're just...
Yes.
Yeah, you're just that kind of like, I don't know, like zany too.
Yeah, the eccentric.
Wizard.
Yeah.
The blizzard.
The bard, the wizard, the blizzard. So my takeaways, so similarly to Jess, like I really admire the ensemble cast in here. That's something I actually do in my writing. I typically do work in bands of like 3 or more when I'm working with scenes. But one thing I really love about this, and it kind of reminds me of like Terry Pratchett's works again, to mention him, it's having the peanut gallery, just sort of the random bozos on the street, be characters in the scene. Like, you're interacting with these passerby that just impart so much flavor into a scene so immediately and quickly. Like, in the opening crawl, we have this full crowd of medieval peasants raucously cheering to Queen as they're getting ready to watch the knights fight. And clearly I'm guessing maybe they just pulled a bunch of, like, local Rennies, like Renaissance fair people that already had costumes ready. But there's just so much, like, flavor and personality in each of those characters, even though they don't have lines. And then just, like, the very quick interactions with the blacksmiths later on. Like, each of them has a distinct little personality, even though they have, like, one line apiece. And it's just, like, having that fleshed out human background is something that I really admire and I try to incorporate.
And I feel like you are also, like, you are clever enough to be like, if someone said, I want to do a sports movie that nobody's ever seen before, I feel like you would be clever enough to be like, you know what?
You know what? You need to add... Okay, setting the scene, you need the drunkard, shirtless fat guys in the back, just chother.
The merchants selling cat meat in the stands.
Yeah, the guys with their, like, beer bellies out, like, hitting their flagons together and all the froth going everywhere. And the lady, like, dancing in the stands.
The crowd is a character.
And I feel like you would be the person who would... connect like sports movie and jousting. That's something nobody's ever seen. And then create these like sets where the sets speak. They do such a good job in creating like the character of the movie beyond the main characters.
Yeah, and like that was actually going to be my other takeaway, like genre mashups. Fucking love that. And this is an S tier example of how to take two really weird genres and put them together in an extremely successful way. Like, it's two flavors that taste good on their own that you wouldn't think would taste good together. And yet,
Yeah.
Like mashed potatoes and ketchup.
Or I would say,
I don't know about that.
I would say orange and chocolate, because if you asked me, like, those two things by themselves, if I had never tasted orange chocolate before, I would be like, what the fuck? Gross freak.
I one up that and say chocolate and chili.
Yeah?
The lovely
Chili
surprise
powder.
of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I love genre mashups. That's also something I incorporate. I guess I can go ahead and give some hints to one of the projects we have in the works. I'm currently in the process of writing up a workplace comedy / space western. That is the kind of stuff I live for. I love seeing unique combinations of things.
Yeah.
And to see it done so deftly.
Yeah.
It's like you said, it's aspirational.
Yes. I too love a good crack fic.
Yes.
Or I don't know if that's exactly the right terminology here, but like it's kind of, just two things that are kind of wild.
It's a what the fuck.
Yeah.
Is what it
and
is.
then when you play it straight and you put your heart and soul into it and it comes together and it's actually like just one of the most fucking insane but beautiful things you've ever seen. I fucking love that. I love genre mashups.
It is like a movie that we will be discussing later in this year. Cowboys and Aliens.
Yes.
Speaking of weird fucking genre mashups
that works
that
so
slap
well.
way harder than they have right to.
Than
they have any right to. All right, your dessert round, asshole.
All right. So, as cozy man, resident cozy inspector.
Cozy inspector.
I
Open up.
really enjoy the blacksmith's kind of get up. She's really cute, and she has like a really nicely done like leather apron.
Yeah, she
Oh, yeah.
does.
And just, I don't know, she just seems like somebody I would want to hang out with.
Yeah. Yeah, I do like Kate. Kate is an underrated character.
Yeah.
She's really good.
Are you a blacksmith or a woman? Sometimes I'm both.
Yeah, honestly, she's she's such a grounding force for the band of idiots that she has been sucked into.
Well, and also on a very quick side history note.
Yes.
So she is a widow, and that's something that you find out when they're writing the love letter to Jocelyn. So while women generally traditionally couldn't hold property or businesses in medieval Europe, if their husband had a trade and their husband died, women could inherit that trade and keep it going. Because in trade households, everybody had to know the work, essentially. Everybody was doing the work. So the wife would know how to carry on that trade, and she could continue to work.
And it's funny to me that that's one of the few places that they chose not to be anachronistic.
Yeah.
But it's clever.
And I also think that it's interesting that they, when your mind reaches for blacksmith, you reach for a male
burly,
character.
More so than that, the brainy technician of an ensemble
The brainy
cast.
technician, or the sports
equipment person.
Yeah, the designer for sports equipment. Those are all very, in my mind, very male roles sort of things, and they didn't do that here. And
they gave it to a woman, and it works.
And it worked. Yeah, it worked really well. And I don't know. I just I was surprised.
She's kind of a tiny woman too.
Yeah,
she's pretty slight, but she knows how to hold a hammer.
I was surprised and delighted by that choice, and also that the widow thing. That I thought that was kind of interesting. They did that historically accurately.
Get off of my dessert round. Also, as scene chewer, I wanted to take a special note about this specific scene. So, William is in the stocks. He's been found out to be nothing more than a Thatcher. He's pretty much at his lowest point. And everybody, the entire town square is throwing fruit, vegetables, so on and so forth, filth at him. And his friends start stepping up and start essentially trying to bouncer away these...
place themselves between him and this like
The mob.
literally angry crowd.
This angry mob that's almost wants to kill him at some points.
Yeah.
And, like, this is definitely the lowest point that he has probably ever felt in his life. And lo and behold, his savior is the prince, the crown prince. And, like, it's just, I don't know, it's just a very striking moment for me that his lowest moment,
becomes his highest.
and he's kneeling. Like, he's asked to kneel a little bit farther so he can be knighted
So
and
he can-
arise.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
arise as a knight.
The drama of it all.
Yeah.
It's just exceptionally just like,
So good. Emotionally, yes.
like, your honor. Honor!
Yeah.
I live for that shit.
Yeah.
So is that influences, aspirations?
So that's, I mean, I don't know, just like to try and become more than what you were allotted in life and try and strive to be chivalrous and knightly and
Noble.
noble. Like, I don't know, it just
Aim high.
aim high, shoot for the stars, and change them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know, I'm gonna take that with me.
Yeah.
As a personal life lesson, it sounds like.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh, Hammometer.
I'm imagining this one's high.
This one's fairly high. So, I'm scoring this as an 8.
All right.
I can see it. Yeah.
So let's break it down.
Paul Bettany gets 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. He
Hands down,
and
easily.
his grand orations. Yeah.
He gets, I mean, honestly, he gets 2 just because of the naked scenes.
I mean,
honestly.
yeah.
Well, yeah. And then his introductions.
Yeah, and then his introductions and the fact that, you know, the Crown Prince is just like, oh, this idiot is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just going to keep him around.
Uh-huh. I love these clowns.
Yeah.
Jockstrap gets 2 because he's just so anime villain.
He is so again.
He is like one moment away from doing the full Gendo Ikari directly into the
Yeah.
camera.
just
but like or from like going like full Bakugo.
Yeah.
just like, Sir Ulrich, Sir Ulrich, Sir Ulrich.
Yeah, the Ree. Yes.
I mean, again, this could so
He's a perfect shonen villain.
easily
Yeah.
be a shonen, and this could so easily be a tournament arc in a shonen anime.
Yeah, I mean, hell, it could also be a new Rocky film if you really
Yeah?
wanted
Actually,
to.
It shares a lot
I
with
saw
Rocky.
that there was when I was reading some of the reviews of A Knight's Tale, one of the reviewers did compare it to like a Rocky movie.
Yeah, that's
except
absolutely
medieval.
correct.
Yeah.
Okay, so D&D Squad gets 2,
Yes.
and then Queen gets 1.
Yeah.
Yeah, the music
presence of
choices,
Queen.
yeah.
So, in conclusion, 8.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I feel.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just a great time.
It's
Yeah.
so fun.
It's enjoyable.
Watch it. Enjoy it.
Fall in love with Heath Ledger, smile once more.
Peep a little bit of Alan Tudyk teat. if you can spot it.
And the ladies have got it going on here too. We've lavished more attention on the men, I feel like, this time around.
Dude, I mean, the whole thing is like a sausage fest, so... Like,
Yeah, but Jocelyn's handmaid,
her
Kate.
lady in waiting.
Well,
Kate,
actually,
they're
so
all very
let us
pretty.
reflect on the fact that I think this casting director had a type, because all the lead women are dark-eyed brunettes.
Yeah, but I kind of like that in stark contrast to what you typically see in
Yeah.
a medieval European
Oh,
setting.
yeah, no,
it's
absolutely.
blonde hair and blue
But-
eyes, or maybe the occasional redhead. When like Europeans, there's plenty
A
of
lot of
Europeans
variation,
who have like dark complexions and like
But
black hair. Or,
I do suspect that the casting director
Brown
had
eyes.
a type, because they share a certain look among them.
yeah,
And it's a look that works, but it's shared among all three of
there's
them.
really only like 3 women.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
I don't think this passes the Bechdel test.
No.
In fact, I'm sure it doesn't.
No.
You know, it'd been awesome if like one of the women actually was like, in disguise, like, haha,
I'm also jousting.
yeah, that would have been great.
Blend this the 12th night. And
I also thought it was like, so kind of side note, I thought it was really funny how so they send the letter with Watt to to Jocelyn, and she's reading it tearfully, and
did we actually like talk about that the letter wasn't written just by
but briefly.
Okay.
So everybody contributed their little pieces to it, and it's kind of funny because when you get to the point in the letter, like Jocelyn is reading the letter aloud, and when she reaches the point that like Watt had contributed to,
he gives a little
he turns his face away because he can't stop from like smiling a little bit. But anyway, so he's like, my lord was hoping that you might send a reply back to him with me, a token or something. And she just gets this like delighted little like smirk on her face. And so when Watt rides back into Paris to deliver the news to William, he's like, yes, she did say that she'd be coming to Paris, and he's like, yes, and then he's like, okay, did she give me something? And then like Watt's face just totally changes. He's like, and he's like, oh, she did give me something, give it to me, come on, Watt. And and Watt like kisses
him full on the mouth,
and at first, like, William was like, huh! And then he's like, oh, that's, like, it's Jocelyn kissed me, and he's like, yes! But I also just think it's so funny that, like, I can only imagine Jocelyn just, like, sitting there knowing the havoc she's about to wreak, and being like, but I also, like, it hasn't caught up to William that, like, Watt got to kiss the woman he loves before he did. Like, Watt got that first kiss. But yes, I like to think that Jocelyn was just like, now kiss.
Yeah.
I'm going to make them kiss. And it's going to be hilarious. So anyway, there's lots of good little funny moments. Like, this is one of those movies too where it's like, it's hard to sum up because it's got so much humor. Just
it's got a lot of fun little moments, but remains pacey.
It's also really well written, honestly.
Yeah. It's well written. It's actually kind of a long movie. I think it's over 2 hours, but you don't really notice.
It feels like a quick watch.
Yeah, because it's going along. It's doing what it needs to do.
It's cute.
It's engaging.
It's engaging. It's enjoyable.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Yeah. So, there you have it. That's A Knight's Tale. And I know A Knight's Tale has like a lot of fans out there. We'd love to hear from other fans of A Knight's Tale. And if you haven't seen it before and you watch it and have thoughts about it, go ahead and send us a message or a comment on our Instagram at media_morsels. We'd love to hear from you. Mm-hmm. And I think it's time to wash the dishes and put everything away.
Also, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to our 7 or 8 viewers on YouTube because I don't feel like they get enough credit.
Honestly, yes. Like, thank you, YouTube viewers. Thank you so much.
Thank you for finding us.
Yes.
Thank you for finding us. If it so inclines and we're entertaining enough, why not, share a like?
Yeah.
Like, comment, subscribe, do the YouTube things.
Yeah. Also,
praise be to the algorithm.
Mm-hmm. Also, shout out to the Belgians. Or maybe, like, the Belgian. There's, like, early on in the harrowing of Minerva Damson, like, outside of the U.S. and Ireland, since my sister lives there, the first adopters of the harrowing of Minerva Damson were Belgians, or maybe, I don't know, a single Belgian person, I don't know. And the same is true for Media Morsels. Like, there's, like, America,
we're getting at
Ireland,
least one hit in Belgium.
And Belgium. And I just gotta say, like...
We see you guys.
Yeah, I see you. I appreciate you. Like, thank you, Belgium.
Yeah?
We're a podcast that gets heard around the world.
Yeah, I know.
Even if it might be a VPN, it's fine. We won't tell anybody.
Yeah, it makes us feel good anyway.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think that will do for A Knight's Tale. I'm sure that we forgot to say some things because I'm kind of like tired and loopy. As always, we're doing this probably a little too late at night. So, don't worry about the dishes. We'll take care of them.
We'll take care of them tomorrow.
Yeah, they're in the sink. We'll get back to them in the morning.
These ones need to sew.
But yeah, thank you for being here with us. We're really happy to have you. If you know anybody else who might like to come sit with us at our table, go ahead and invite them. Send them a link. We'll make room. We'll be happy to have more company. The more the merrier.
The more the merrier.
Yeah. Until next week, we'll save you a seat.